The Young and the Restless spoilers. The fragile dream of a wedding between Claire and Kyle is unraveling before it ever truly takes shape, and the undercurrents moving against them are far more powerful than the affection they've been clinging to. Kyle, blinded by admiration and intoxicated by the validation he receives when he is seen at Claire's side, has convinced himself that his feelings for her are unshakable, even when logic and intuition whisper otherwise. For him, Claire has become the answer to the void left in his heart, the embodiment of a future free from past regrets. Yet his tunnel vision leaves him unable to see the larger storm forming around them, one that could easily sweep their relationship away. While Kyle drifts in this haze of devotion, others are watching with sharper eyes and heavier hearts, quietly working to prevent a marriage that feels more like a facade than a promise. Summer, far away in Milan with Harrison, has not been able to ignore what she knows about Claire. Even oceans apart, she has pieced together threads of Claire's ambition and glimpses of her darker tendencies, recognizing that beneath the polished surface lies a woman willing to manipulate, deceive, and even destroy to secure her place in the world of Genoa City. Summer's protective instincts for Harrison push her to act, because for her, this isn't merely about Kyle's poor judgment, it is about the safety and well-being of their child, who stands to be entangled in Claire's calculated ambitions if the marriage proceeds. The letter Summer sends to Kyle is not just a plea from a former partner or the voice of a concerned mother. It is layered with proof, evidence of Claire's criminal actions, fragments of her twisted schemes, and the kind of revelations that could not only end an engagement but obliterate a reputation. Alongside the evidence are Harrison's innocent words and wishes, a poignant reminder to Kyle that his son's future is not simply an accessory to his romantic choices. The letter is both dagger and lifeline, designed to pierce Kyle's delusions while giving him a chance to choose the truth. The complexity deepens with whispers of Claire's secret bond with Holden Novak. Their connection, once speculative, has now grown into a shadowy thread running parallel to her engagement. Where Kyle sees a bride, Holden sees a co-conspirator, and together they have crafted a path that leads not to vows and family but to deception and escape. Holden's wisdom lies not in grand gestures but in subtlety. He knows how to disappear into shadows, how to read a situation and pivot before being cornered. Claire, who craves control and dominance, has found in him not only an accomplice but a partner who understands her hunger and can amplify it with his cunning. Their alliance has been slowly revealed to those watching from the sidelines, creating an aura of danger that lingers over every step Claire takes with Kyle. If Kyle is indeed deceived, the consequences will be devastating. His loyalty will look like weakness, his love like blindness, and his future like a ruin crafted by the very person he thought would stand beside him. The scandal of a failed Newman-Abbott wedding is not just personal, it is political. Every marriage in Genoa City between these dynasties carries weight far beyond romance, serving as symbols of alliances, truces, or provocations. For Kyle to fall victim to such betrayal, orchestrated in part by Holden and facilitated by Claire's manipulation, would leave him humiliated and exposed. Worse, it would leave Jabot and the Abbotts vulnerable to both Newman's scrutiny and Kane's predatory ambitions, tightening the net around Kyle as both a man and an heir. For Summer, her intervention may come at great cost. By exposing Claire, she risks reigniting conflict with Kyle, who may see her actions as jealousy or interference. Yet her decision is rooted not in nostalgia or bitterness but in foresight, an understanding that protecting Harrison and preventing Kyle's ruin requires sacrifice. The ripple effect of her letter, once its contents come to light, will ignite fires in every corner of Genoa City, from the Abbotts, who will rally to protect their own, to the Newmans, who will question Claire's motives and Holden's influence. For Victor, such revelations might even become another piece in his wider war against Kane, a reminder that in Genoa City, no betrayal exists in isolation. As the layers peel away, it becomes clear that the Claire-Kyle union was never destined to endure. It is less a romance and more a battlefield, one where ambition collides with innocence, and where love becomes a weapon wielded by those with darker intentions. Claire and Holden, united in secrecy, have already set their escape in motion, and when the trap closes, it will not be them ensnared, it will be Kyle, left to reckon with the cost of misplaced devotion and the bitter taste of betrayal that Genoa City knows all too well. Kyle Abbott did not expect a piece of paper to feel like a weight, but the letter from Milan was heavier than any contract, heavier than any board vote, heavier even than the years he spent learning what it meant to be an abbot in a town that devours certainty. Summer wrote with the clarity of someone who has burned through denial and reached the shore of truth, and that calm precision hurt more than anger would have. She spoke of Harrison's wishes in the plain, luminous language children reserve for the things that matter, who feels safe, who tells the truth, who notices when fear walks into a room and pretends to be charm. She outlined incidents that had seemed, at the time, like mere static around Claire's rise, odd invoices routed through temporary LLCs, meet and greets that never posted to social, a pattern of last-minute schedule flips justified by the fog of corporate urgency. She named Holden Novak not as rumor but as anchor, a gravity point Claire orbited when she thought no one was tracking trajectories. And then Summer set the terms that made Kyle's hands shake. If you believe me, end it and keep this from Claire. If you don't, burn it to ash and move forward. No middle shelf for indecision. No corridor for compromise. Only a hinge that would swing his life one way or the other, and he would either choose his son's future or the possibility that love could outshout evidence. He did not burn the letter. He folded it along neat creases, as though order could be imposed upon chaos, and sealed it inside the same safe where he kept Harrison's drawings and the watch his grandfather had restored for him after graduation. Then he performed the small unheroic rituals of a man preparing for a truth he does not want. He backed up his messages, cleared his browser tabs, packed a gym bag he would never use, and made a list, tasks, names, places, times, because lists are how abbots remember they have agency when everything feels like drift. The first decision was not to involve Jack, because Jack loved him too fiercely and would turn suspicion into a war within hours. Nor Tracy, because her empathy would soften what needed to be steel. Nor Summer again, because part of protecting her was sparing her the guilt of watching him crawl across broken glass. He told no one. He texted Claire with the warmth of habit, thanked her for a small kindness she had shown Harrison last week, and complimented a presentation she had aced. When trust fractures, sincerity and performance were the same face, Kyle let that paradox shield him while he charted his route. The investigation began with silence and patience, the two resources he had previously squandered in love. He reviewed building access logs through channels he knew as an executive, nothing dramatic, only the cold alphabet of badge pings. Claire's card had ghosted the R&D floor after hours twice in the last month, visits she had chalked up to dropping something off for a friend when he had asked casually at breakfast. The logs placed her there for just 13 minutes each time, long enough to receive, transfer, or photograph. He cross-referenced the timestamps against courier records and inventory signouts. A single unreconciled sample kit stood out like a bruise. He pulled security footage for the east elevator landing, no Claire, but Holden in a brimmed cap, shoulders turned to camera, stepping out with a visitor's sticker that should not exist because no visitor passes after 7 p.m. Holden's name did not appear in the digital guestbook. The sticker's serial number mapped back to a short roll that went missing during a daytime tour for a hiring event. The picture resolved, she had not brought him in directly, she had primed the environment for him to ghost through. It was elegant work, the kind designed to keep suspicion diffuse and accountability fogged. Kyle did not let the adrenaline run him, he let it simmer, because a pot kept just below boil releases fewer clouds. He tested Claire with small, harmless-seeming alterations to their shared calendar, moving a dinner forward 30 minutes, suggesting a midday coffee instead of an evening meet. Twice she declined with charming, believable reasons, twice her device location, quietly mirrored to a parental controls app Harrison's tablet used, a banal family tech artifact that happened to still include Claire's phone, drifted into a radius that overlapped with Holden's habitual patterns. He did not even need a private investigator to confirm those patterns. Holden was careful in person but sloppy in layers, leaving streaks of metadata when he posted travel shots for clients under a boutique consultancy persona, the kind of aspirational collage that looks like marketing until you measure the shadows. A boutique event at the athletic club's private lounge was supposedly sponsored by a shell that had, through 2 hops, touched an entity Kane Ashby had once used to bury transactional noise. It would have been easy to overreach and declare conspiracy where only opportunism lived, but Kyle forced himself into discipline. Correlation is not causation, but 12 correlations begin to look like a spine. There was a moment, there always is, when he almost stopped. Claire sat on the floor of his living room with Harrison, building a cardboard stadium for toy cars, and when one flimsy wall collapsed she laughed, the small unguarded laugh of someone who remembers being a child and is briefly unburdened by ambition. Harrison beamed at her. She kissed the top of his hair the way summer did when they flew kites, the easy, preoccupied kiss of a caretaker absorbed in play. In another life, in a cleaner timeline where love did not have to prove itself by surviving interrogation, that tableau would have been enough. But the letter existed, and evidence had begun to congeal into shape, and Kyle had spent too many years learning that Genoa City rewards denial with collateral damage. So he watched her laugh, memorized it, and then pulled himself back toward the only gift he could give his son, the courage to know. He approached the larger structure next, money. Love lies with its heart, ambition lies with its invoices. He mapped a thread of boutique vendors that had orbited Claire's promotion, a PR mini-shop hired for 3 weeks around a leadership summit, a fabrication team that built pop-up displays that were never used because the venue changed last minute, a driver service paid in cash equivalents for a route that only made sense if a passenger needed to bypass both the east and south cameras at Society. Each vendor led to the same fractional manager in a payment processor that froze and unfroze small accounts as though testing reflux. The manager linked to an apartment 1 floor below Holden's listed address. None of this, on its own, was a confession. Together, it was a melody only the guilty write. And so he set a final test that did not require accusation, only observation. He proposed accelerating the wedding announcement by 1 week and suggested transferring a tranche of Jabot family shares into a prenuptial trust for Harrison to simplify optics after they married. He told Claire the attorney would need to complete routine diligence, including background checks for all beneficiaries, and asked for the names of anyone she wanted included in a family and friends safe harbor, a euphemism for the handful of people a new spouse often wants close to early philanthropic efforts. Kyle waited to see if Holden's name surfaced in any form, as a donor pipeline, as a consultant, as an old friend who knows rooftops. Claire smiled and pivoted. She loved the idea of the announcement but worried about the timeline. She loved the trust but wanted to let the market settle. She named no one for the safe harbor, then, later that night, sent him a message meant to be screenshot sweet about how she cherished how clean they kept their circle. He stared at the words and felt, with clinical clarity, the absence where honesty should have been. The last proof came not as drama but as geometry. A black sedan pulled into the loading alley behind a shuttered wine bar 2 blocks from the athletic club at a time Claire had told him she was onboarding a team in PR. The bar's back camera, rotted by rain, fogged at the edges, caught 2 silhouettes sliding into the rear seat. One was Claire's height, her gait, the particular tilt of her head when she listened. The other matched Holden's build. The driver paused long enough to accept a small envelope through a cracked window. The car did not exit the alley toward the club, it nosed past 2 dumpsters and vanished down a lane reserved for maintenance vehicles. The timestamp sat less than 90 minutes after Kyle's message about the background check. He did not need audio. He did not need Face ID. He needed only the known truth that people flee the moment a story threatens to become permanent. He did not stage a confrontation. He did not orchestrate a scene in a restaurant with too many witnesses and a humiliation that would stain Harrison's search results one day. He waited until morning, drove Harrison to school, and returned to find the ring on the tray beside the sink and a note that was all finesse and no content, scheduling pressures, an opportunity in another city, a need for space to grow, a promise to talk when the dust settled. Holden's name did not appear, he was the ghost he had always been. Claire had taken the elegant exit a strategist chooses when exposed. She left before he could end it, preserving narrative control and denying him the catharsis of saying the words out loud. Kyle felt both relief and the clean, cutting ache of an amputation successful in surgery and devastating in recovery. He forwarded the dossier he had built, carefully, narrowly, to legal counsel to safeguard Jabot's IP, copied no family, and archived every message that could light a fuse. News rippled anyway, because absence speaks, and because people in Genoa City are meteorologists of scandal. Within a day the whispers hardened, the wedding was postponed, which meant cancelled, the couple was taking time, which meant over, Claire had pivoted to a new opportunity, which meant Holden had been more than rumor. In Milan, Summer received a 2-word reply that she read 3 times because peace often arrives in small syllables, thank you. She exhaled for the first time in weeks, pressed a kiss to Harrison's hair as he slept, and allowed herself to imagine a horizon in which co-parenting would no longer require triage. She did not gloat. She did not post. She placed the duplicates of her evidence back in a folder and slid it into the bottom of a drawer, because sometimes the most loving act is to keep a secret safe even after it has served its purpose. The escape unfolded as wisely as Summer had predicted. Holden, who had built a career in never being where the story said he should be, moved Claire through a zigzag of cities where her name meant ambition but not yet notoriety. There were no dramatic arrests, no last-minute gate confrontations. There were instead silent apartment sublets paid 6 months in advance, workspaces booked under variations of maiden initials, and a short stint consulting for a firm that liked its contracts unsigned and its deliverables verbal. They would reappear when the oxygen of gossip had thinned and when Victor's temper had a new target. They would wear new purposes the way people in this town change haircuts to erase a bad year. Kyle knew this not because he had a tracking device but because he had learned the pattern. The truly calculating do not need spectacle to survive. They need time. In the ruins, choices remained. He could have weaponized the dossier against Claire to scour her prospects and salt the ground she walked. He did not, partly because he refused to teach Harrison that revenge feels like integrity, partly because the corporate ramifications were already contained, and mostly because he was tired. He could have returned to Summer with an apology shaped like a promise. He did not, because love is not a prize you reclaim at the finish line of humiliation. Instead, he built a new routine around reliability. He showed up early to pickups, cleared his evenings for homework and dinosaur documentaries, sat with Harrison at breakfast instead of triaging emails, and learned that stability is not glamorous but it is holy. At work he tightened review protocols and learned to say no to shortcuts dressed as strategic flexibility, because love had taught him something about compliance that charts never could. In quiet moments he let grief move through him not only for Claire but for the person he had been while loving her, a man too willing to outsource his discernment to the chemistry of being seen. Word of Victor's ever-widening trap around Kane drifted through the corridors like weather, and Kyle felt the old pull toward battle, the Abbott reflex to pick a side and make a move. He recognized the new discipline in himself when he didn't. Victor and Jack would do what they always do, carve a solution from granite with barreled shoulders and unblinking eyes. If Claire's orbit had brushed Kane's networks, that intersection would surface without Kyle wielding it like a sword. He had already chosen which wars were his to fight. The lesson was not that trust should be rationed to cynicism, but that it should be threaded through verification the way a surgeon threads a stitch, purposeful, exact, unwilling to leave the wound open to infection. And what of love, the impatient river that had dragged him into this? He did not swear off it, because oaths forged in pain calcify into prisons. He let it recede, let it learn new banks, let it discover the honesty of ordinary days where romance is less a fireworks finale than a practiced kindness. He told Harrison the truth appropriate to his age, that families change, that care is measured by showing up, that people leave sometimes because staying would make everyone worse. He held his son when questions overtook breathing, and he answered them with steadiness rather than spectacle. And when he finally met Summer at a neutral cafe on a gray afternoon months later, there was no theater, only 2 people who shared a child and a history and the relief of having navigated a storm without setting the town on fire. They spoke about school projects and travel logistics and the science fair volcano that kept collapsing, and in the space between those practicalities lived the beginnings of something sturdier than romance, respect restored.